do we spend on prisons versus, I don't know, fixing schools or God forbid, taking folks who have addiction problems with other drugs,
right,
all right, and treating them. I mean, speak to that, if you will, the incredible industry, much of it private industry.
Yes.
Tied, and here's the thing, we hate crony capitalism. And so if folks are trading on insider connections to become the prison industrial complex for the United States and essentially, through that privatization are making outsized profits, being intellectually honest libertarians, all right, we see a problem there, all right, which is why we're at the forefront of fighting things like the stadium and these idiot trolley car ideas and all that other stuff in Providence. So speak to that, if you will, the prison system. I mean, how big is our prison system in this country?
Oh, it's massive. It's massive. Again, 2.3 million people are under the thumb of the criminal justice system. A lot of that is for drug offenses. And just think about the perverse incentive that you have with these private prisons where, they're literally making money off of people being arrested for drugs and incarcerated for drugs. So, of course, they're going to support
because they're subsidized per prisoner.
Exactly. So, in Rhode Island, fortunately, its roots here yet. We do have a public prison, but in places like California, for instance, in the last decade, they built 22 prisons and only one university. I mean, it's a total imbalance of spending and money.
Well, I would say that there's a corollary in the public prison system as well, because if prison population goes up, then hey, the budget has to go up too.
Right.
So
the correctional officers union has
there's that the old nut in the public sector. Well, we could streamline and we could save some money, but then they're going to cut our budget next year.
Exactly, they're going to lay off workers, so we can't let them do that.
Right. So we need to spend every dime and show that we need to increase our budget every year, and so there's a similar corollary in the public prison system.
Absolutely. And hey, we could expand. Let's incarcerate more people so that we can build more prisons. I mean, that sort of logic is just perverse on every level. So
let me just jump in here we haven't done in a little while a station ID, if you will. If you're just tuning in, of course, you're listening to RIFreeRadio.org, a very special edition of the Coalition taking place at CannaCon at the Providence Convention Center here in scenic Metropolitan Stadium and trolley car free Providence, Rhode Island. 2 days, by the way. This will be going on until about 5 or 6 o'clock this afternoon. If you're in Providence and looking for education, you've got a lot of happy people here providing education, information, training on all levels, particularly related to medical cannabis.
Or if you just need a new one-hitter or a new glass pipe, hey, stop on by.
Stop on by. We can be found at coalitionradio.us, RIFreeRadio.org, the Coalition Radio Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. And, of course, as Tony Jones likes to put it, on the mighty, mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio. Of course, we'll be on WPRO AM 630, 99.7 FM this evening at 6 o'clock at the Bryan Shrine in East Providence with none other than Stephen Brown, the head of the Rhode Island American Civil Liberties Union chapter. Joining us right now, of course, is Jared Moffett, the Grand Poobah, the High Exalted Ruler Chief Water Buffalo of Regulate Rhode Island. And we're going through a lot of we call them the bogeymen, the urban myths and legends that surround, that essentially politicians and connected interests using fear to confuse and obfuscate the real issues surrounding the regulation of cannabis. The two dirtiest words in the human language, if you're a libertarian, as the three of us are here, is the ad council. All right? Any idea how much money the ad council has spent on
This is your brain on drugs commercials?
I learned it from watching
How many perfectly good eggs have been wasted?
Making sure that politically connected advertising agencies and radio stations are fed money and work to, again, create the big lie.
It's a huge budget. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I do know that there was a study done looking at some of these ads and actually found a counterproductive result. That means that those kids who were exposed to these ads were actually more disposed to use drugs.
Hey, good idea. Right? I really need to chill out.
That's cool. There's an alien and he's flying after he used marijuana, so maybe I could do that.
Sweet. I want to melt into the couch.
Right. Just made it more appealing to kids, so it's outrageous.
Now, the next level, of course, is the geopolitical implications. This past 2 years, we've been treated, and I use that term loosely, because this has been an area of a deadly serious issue here, particularly in the Northeast, where you've had a grotesque displacement of people from Central and Latin America to the United States as a result of the drug wars, the cartel wars, particularly in Mexico. How did that happen, Jared?
It happened because we escalated it, because the United States essentially went to these Latin American countries and they said, either you allow us to fund your military to fight these drug cartels, or we're going to basically screw you with our trade deals. And so what happened is these countries accepted the military training to go after these drug cartels. And of course what happens, it's like a hydra. As soon as you cut off the head and take out one of the leaders, like we saw with Pablo Escobar, you just see more heads start to spring up. You just create more competition for the top position. And so now you have increasingly violent cartels competing with each other in the region, and it's really one of the most tragic foreign policy failures of our era.
Well, and if you militarize the law enforcement, then the cartel's most logical move is to militarize themselves.
Exactly.
So now you see these cartels with body armor and their own SWAT teams and automatic weapons and you name it.
Yep, and corrupting the government, and that's what you see is an alliance between right now the Zetas and the Mexican government is what's happening. So
right, and caught in the crossfire is an entire generation of innocent civilians who feel compelled to send their children to the United States, which of course has resulted in yet another health crisis, because these folks are very often from the poorest portions of Central America. They're undocumented. They have no really legitimate health system in the parts of the country they're coming from, so they're importing disease, pestilence, yet they're human beings. So that it's not right to just dismiss them as some sort of plague. If they are a plague, it's a plague that we've caused, that we've created in the test tubes that are the criminal justice system and the halls of foreign policy here in the United States. So they come to the United States. We had a child die in Cumberland. And again, they've never drawn the connection, but it was suspiciously close to an outbreak that occurred across the country. And then, of course, these children...
I'm still blaming the anti-vaxxers on that.
Well, then you had these children dropped into our educational system, which is already overburdened, already crumbling, because we're spending all sorts of money to create a war on drugs, which is what started the whole vicious cycle in the first place.
Exactly.
So when the hell are we going to learn? And when the hell are people going to just get pissed off and say, screw this?
Yeah, well, one thing I am excited about, I share your outrage. One thing I'm excited about is in 2016, the United Nations is going to have a special session on drug policy. So this is going to be really revolutionary, because the last time they had a special session on drug policy was 98. And what they decided, what the conclusion of that convention was, we're going to eradicate drugs from the planet. That was their concluding mission. And obviously, in the intervening years, a lot of leaders from Latin America have realized that strategy just destroys their country. It just decimates those communities. And so we have a chance now in 2016, in April next year, to redefine what the global drug treaties look like. And we have finally a chance to go backwards and step back from this war on drugs approach and take a more sensible approach.
Which is why politics is so important, because if we have, and this is speaking as a libertarian who has an issue with conservative Republicans, if we take the same knee-jerk, Paleolithic, Dave, what do we like to call it? Binary thinking.
the knuckle dragging, mouth breathing, binary thinking troglodyte
political approach to the war on drugs. Guess what? It's going to happen all over again.
Yep.
And we'll be having the same conversation 10 years from now.
Yep.
All right? That's if I'm still alive. But so the solution, as is in many cases, complicated to enact but straightforward to really begin. Mm-hmm. And the way you begin that is how?
Well, I think we begin by realizing that incarceration and punishment in terms of approaching drug use has failed, and what we should be doing is taking people that need help and giving them treatment. I mean, most Americans, surprisingly, actually agree with that statement, and yet our policies just don't yet reflect it. It's pretty common sense. You throw someone in a cage who's got an addiction problem, they're not going to get better. They're not going to reform. You're not giving them the services they need to rehabilitate. So what are they going to do? They're going to reoffend. They're going to continue and relapse. And so most Americans are now waking up to see, wow, we've got to take a different approach, which means helping these people that have a disease of addiction. And for the people that don't, the vast majority of drug users don't have a disease, don't have a problem. So we need to stop treating them as criminals.
So for folks unlike Pat and I that are actually allowed to contact their General Assembly member, how's the ground game looking this session as far as the bill goes? Because I'm trying to get a response from my own state senator and my state rep, and the silence is deafening down in my neck of the woods. But I hear that there's some momentum for this session.
Well, the public is totally on board with this. We had a survey come out and show that 57% of Rhode Island voters support regulating marijuana like alcohol. So the public is there. The coalition, we have doctors, clergy, law enforcement, parents, teachers, all a part of this Regulate Rhode Island coalition. What we're seeing is a lack of response, just as you said, Tony, from the politicians, which I think is very disappointing. We had these state leaders say that they were going to take bold leadership, they're going to take bold action to turn our state around, and yet we're not getting any responses. So the door is still open for us. We could still pass the bill this year, but it's crucial that everyone listening to this contact your state legislators, that means your state representative and your state senator, and tell them to support this and pass it this year.
But if your local animal shelter needs a $500 grant and there's going to be people there taking pictures, well, they'll show up for that. But
right. But 57% of the state, I guess, is not enough to get their attention.
Well, I think we should have voter initiative here in the state of Rhode Island, because with those polling numbers, you would have absolutely no problem, passing a petition and getting something like this on a ballot and getting it done toot sweet, as they say up in Woonsocket.
Absolutely. And just one quick comment. A lot of legislators have asked me, well, why don't we just wait and see? Why don't we just see how Colorado plays out a little bit more? And my response is always this. The reason it's urgent is because we know other states are going to do this, and we have an opportunity right now in Rhode Island to capitalize on a new market and get on the ground floor, give our entrepreneurs a head start. This is going to create jobs, hundreds if not thousands of jobs. A lot of that's going to go to young people. It's going to help stop the brain drain problem. And
never mind the industry itself. I mean, when you're the first one in the pool or one of the first ones in the pool, you've now created this structure of professionals who are now going to, when other states decriminalize and legalize, they're going to be in demand to go out and consult and create these, and help out with crafting legislation and setting up the business community. I mean, so you're creating a kind of a dual level demand at that point. A demand for the product, for the industry, but also a demand for the professionals who work in that industry in the other parts of this country.
Absolutely. And businesses are going to be more likely to headquarter in Providence or in Rhode Island if we're the first state. If we let Massachusetts go first, which they're going to have a ballot initiative next year, and it's very likely to pass. If Massachusetts goes first, all those businesses are going to flock to Boston. They're going to go and right across the border. So if we don't do it this year, and this is what I say to every legislator who says, well, what's the harm in waiting and seeing? The harm is we're going to lose a lot of jobs. We're going to lose a lot of opportunities for people in this state to get a job and create a new business. So why would you deny them that? And we've waited and seen long enough to know that prohibition is the worst policy we could have.
Right. So real quick, take a minute, tell everybody out there where you can find Regulate on the web, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff.
Absolutely. So it's regulateri.com. You can sign up for email updates there. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/regulateri. So just search for Regulate Rhode Island. And then, of course, on Twitter, we're just regulateri. So very simple.
All right, so thanks to Jared Moffitt from Regulate RI. Again, this kind of the tip of the spear for the legalization movement here in Rhode Island. I think we're going to do another tune or two here.
We're a little over halfway through the broadcast. We've been sitting on these uncomfortable chairs for hours, so I figured I'd cue up a tune to kind of get our blood boiling. We're going to Hulk up as Hulk Hogan used to do. So we're going to go down to a little Iron Maiden, and we're going to hear The Trooper here on Rhode Island Free Radio.
After the break, we're going to have Mark Ward from Rhode Island Normal.
All right, freeradio.org. We'll be with you live until 4 p.m. How about a little Iron Maiden?